Hello, my friends. Parshas Toledos, 5781. This week represents a very, very special milestone for our community, for our spiritual community here in Washington. Ever since I arrived in September of 2004, every single day, and usually twice a day, in the morning before services and in the afternoon, either before or after evening prayers, a group from our congregation sets aside time to study the Talmud. And we've been studying the Talmud every single day since 2004. And so this Sunday morning, our Talmud group will complete the Talmud. We're going to make a siyum on Tractate Eruvin, and it will mark completion of having studied together as a spiritual community every single page of the Talmud. Now, obviously, there's so much more to the Talmud. It's never ending, and we have so much more to do. But what a special occasion, what a special achievement, worthy of saying thank you to Hashem. Shechiyanu v'kimanu v'giyanu azman hazeh. Thank you, Hashem, for giving us the strength and the ability, the koyachos, the energy to be able to accomplish this task. Along the years, we lost some members of our group, and we remember them, and we miss them very well. Miss them very, very much. And everybody is welcome to join our next tractate, which begins Sunday night, Pesachim. People can join at night or in the mornings. We do the same page of the Talmud at night. And then we repeat it again in the morning. And people can join with us on Zoom or online. So you can contact me if you want more information. But this tractate, which we're, God willing, Be'ezras Hashem Yisparach, going to finish on Sunday morning, is the tractate of Eruvin. And Eruvin deals with the concept of an Eruv. According to Jewish law, there are three types of Eruv. There's what's called an Eruv Tavshilin, there's an Eruv Chatzeros, and an Eruv Techumin. An Eruv Tavshilin does not really appear in our tractate. All the three types of Eruvin really are all based upon the oral law or rabbinic law, and none of them are explicit in the written text of the Torah. Some of them, there's a dispute in the Talmud about whether or not they are biblical, and they are, for example, with respect to Eruv Techumen, some say that these are biblical. There's an opinion in the Talmud that it's biblical, but overwhelmingly, most of all these laws are rabbinic. And so what's the Eruv Tavshilin, which our tractate Eruvin does not deal with? That's the idea that if you want to prepare food from Chag to Shabbat, when Chag comes out on the eve of Shabbat, then you're able to do this by before Shabbat, before Chag, making a bracha on prepared food and calling that's called an Eruv Tavshilin. That you've started your preparation, we've started our preparation in advance of the Chag. A second type of Eruv, which takes up the major part of our tractate of Eruvin, is what's called an Eruv Chatzeros. This is again the type of Eruv that the majority of our tractate discusses. By rabbinic law, there's a prohibition to carry even from one person's private domain into another person's private domain. And so therefore, if two people share a courtyard, for example, how can they carry into this courtyard from their homes? So this prohibition about carrying from one person's private domain into another person's private domain can be overridden if the neighbors, the two or more neighbors, agree to partner symbolically and thereby share their domains. They do this through a ritual of making an Eruv, of taking a piece of matzah or a piece of bread and sharing it and then reciting a blessing of the Eruvin blessing over it. And this ritual explains how we are able to carry today on Shabbat in our neighborhoods and in our communities. We first establish a virtual wall around the city called a Tzuras HaPesach. We put up like telephone wires, which are there, or we put a lechi on the bottom. Sometimes we have to put up other strings. That's to create like a virtual wall around the city. And then after we do that, after we have these walls around the city, even though we can't see them, they're virtual walls, we then make a symbolic partnership with the entire city by saying an Eruv blessing on a box of matzah. So at its core, an Eruv Chatzeros is about the recognition that we cannot perform on Shabbos even a simple task of carrying unless we have a communal partnership. That is the idea of an Eruv Chatzeros. It establishes at its core a communal partnership throughout the whole neighborhood or community or city on Shabbos. And the third type of Eruvin that is discussed in our tractate of Eruvin is called an Eruv Techumen. An Eruv Techumen is based basically on the concept as a baseline. Jewish law does not allow, according to most opinions, Jewish law does not allow one to walk more than 2,000 amos on Shabbos from the city limits. So that's called the tchum, that a person can't walk more than 2,000 amos. However, if a person makes an Eruv, that means they take a food item enough for two meals or two portions and places it somewhere within those 2,000 amos, then a person gets another 2,000 amos to walk on Shabbos. So they can walk for a total of 4,000 amos. So that is what the Eruv Techumen allows. Eruv Techumen, if one makes this, one has an ability to walk an additional 2,000 amos. The spiritual message behind the Eruv Techumen is that one must limit how far one intends to travel on the Holy Shabbos. One has to limit it. Shabbos is a day for spiritual growth, and on this incredibly important day, the most important day of the week, we have to limit our steps. And this idea is true because on a spiritual level, it's teaching us that spiritual growth, which is what we are looking for on Shabbos, does not come from explosive steps or from wide traveling, but rather from small incremental steps, and by staying in place and in location and measured steps where near one's home. Obviously, it's okay to travel during the week, and we need to, and we want to often do it, but the spiritual growth we need comes from small, measured, incremental steps in the close proximity to our home. And this idea is such an important key to meaningful spiritual growth. And meaningful spiritual growth and accomplishment is measured through consistent and measured steps over a long period of time. That's the fundamental, powerful idea that meaningful spiritual growth comes through measured and incremental steps over a long period of time. And having spent the last 16 years with our congregation engaged in daily Talmud study, I look back in great appreciation for this beautiful and powerful message of Eruv Techumen. It didn't always feel like every day when we open the Talmud and we close the Talmud, sometimes the pages were more esoteric, sometimes we said, how does this relate to our life? But it didn't always feel like we were making tremendous progress. But looking back, we say, wow, look at this tremendous accomplishment. We did it. Well, looking back, we could say we did it. And it's not just that we completed every page of the Talmud. That's not although that's an amazing thing, but it's not just that we did it. What it means is we fortified. What I mean by saying we did it is we fortified our lives for 16 years with the richness of the pages of the Talmud. What an amazing feeling. We're saying like the Talmud is part of our lives. The Talmud is coming up from us. When we spend our days and nights in it, the Talmud comes up from us. We breathe the Talmud. We eat the Talmud. We just embrace the Talmud. And in retrospect, I could definitely say that beginning and ending every single day with our group's Talmud study has given me the anchor, the spiritual anchor I need to strengthen my own relationship with Hashem. according to the Vilna Gaon, this concept of Erev Techumin does appear in Parashas Toledos. It appears in our parasha because the pasuk states that Hashem comes to Yitzchak and he said that Avram, your father, obeyed me and kept my charge. He kept my commandments and my mitzvosai. Torasai, chukosai, mitzvosai. He kept my mitzvosai. What does it mean when he says that Avram Avinu kept my mitzvosai? So the Gemara in Yoma says that means that Avram kept the laws of the Torah, and the Vilna Gaon says that this refers to Erev Techumin. It's not clear in the text. The Talmud of Vilna Gaon has a different text of the Talmud, but the Vilna Gaon says it refers to Erev Techumin, that Avram kept the laws of Erev Techumin, that Avram made an Erev Techumin for Shabbos. The idea that Avram observed the laws of Erev Techumin means that Avram was such a spiritual giant that he understood the concept of Erev Techumin. He understood the powerful spiritual message behind the Erev Techumin. Avram understood that we have to use the day of Shabbos as a way of growing spiritually, and that spiritual growth comes through small, measured steps. And that's what the Shabbos is about growing in a measured manner by limiting how far we go on Shabbos to 4,000 amos. This idea of setting long-term spiritual goals and achieving these goals through consistent spiritual path is not as exciting as having an ecstatic religious experience, like a white light moment. It's not as exciting as that. But in our faith, this slow and steady commitment and the slow and steady course is more reflective of the proper spiritual path and more reflective of a realistic long-term spiritual life. Such a path, the path of the Erev Techumin, requires a tenacious and serious commitment to our goals. It's not possible to achieve a significant spiritual goal without a serious commitment. It's just not possible to achieve a significant spiritual goal without a serious commitment. In our portion, in Toledos, this is one of the qualities of Yitzchak that is often overlooked and taken for granted. Yitzchak is the middle generation. He is sandwiched between the dynamism of Avram, the entrepreneur, and the exciting life of exotic travels of Avram and Yaakov. And in contrast to their turbulent life, Yitzchak stays put. Yitzchak represents a steady presence that never ever leaves the land of Canaan. But Yitzchak is the paradigm for all of us of an unwavering and tenacious link in the transmission of our tradition. Yitzchak is a role model that sets for us the tone to make the commitments to our faith, the commitments that are necessary to ensure the transmission of our tradition. And this commitment was what was necessary to ensure the survival of our people. Of all the patriarchs, Yitzchak Avinu might appear to be the one who's the most passive. After all, Avram started it all. Yaakov is the one who was aggressive in his relationships with Lavan, with the controversial narratives, with going down to Egypt. But don't make the mistake of thinking that Yitzchak's quiet determination equals passivity. Don't make that mistake. Don't make the mistake of thinking that Yitzchak's quiet determination equals passivity. Just the opposite. Yitzchak represents tenacity and unending commitment. Consider the following things about Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the only one who never leaves the land of Canaan. Yitzchak is the only one of the patriarchs who is a farmer. Vayizra, that it says that Yitzchak sowed the land and he reaped mea she'arim. He reaped 100-fold. He was a serious farmer. And by farming the land, Yitzchak demonstrates a long-term commitment to the land. He is decidedly not a nomad. He is not going anywhere. He is staying home and planting roots. Nothing shows Yitzchak's commitment to the spiritual goals of his father as much as the narrative in which he fights with Avimelech over the wells. The story is that the Torah tells us that Yitzchak was very successful. He was farming, he was in the area, and the Philistines and Avimelech, they were jealous of Avimelech, and they were jealous of his success. So they figured we could get rid of him easily by scaring him off, and the Philistines come, and they stuffed up the wells that Avram Avinu had dug. They stuffed up Yitzchak's father's wells, and then told Yitzchak to go away. But Yitzchak wasn't going far. That's how the Barbanel interprets it. He says, Yitzchak stayed nearby. He settled nearby and he redug those same wells. And he called them by the same names his father called them. He says, I am not going anywhere. These are the wells of my father. I am still staying here. And he says, I'm staying put. We are continuing the transmission from my father's mission. And Yitzchak then dug 2 more wells. And what were these wells called? The Philistines fought with him. Every inch of the way they fought with him. These wells were called Asek and Sitna. This means quarreling and fighting every second of the way. Every single thing Yitzchak Avinu did, they were fighting with him. Asek, Sitna, dig a well, they stuff it up. But Yitzchak didn't give up. Yitzchak went to a third place, dug more wells, which were more expansive. Rechovot, he called them the expansive wells. Yitzchak never gives up. That's what a Jew must never, ever give up. A Jew must never give up. We must be determined in our commitment to our transmission, to the spiritual values of our lives. This is the end. And in the end, it's Yitzchak's tenacity that helped him to overcome the ongoing attacks of the Philistines. Barbanel considers this tenacity of Yitzchak to be a reflection on his great character. This is what the Barbanel says. He writes, in my opinion, there is great glory to Yitzchak in this story of the wells. And that's why it's written here. Since Yitzchak did all of these things with a bold heart, as if he was the master of the land, Yitzchak said, look, I am the master here. I am not giving up. And therefore Hashem appeared to him and said, I am the Lord of your father Abraham. Do not fear. I am the one who gave Abraham your father the power to defeat the kings. I am the one who gave you the power to act with strength. Do not fear the men of Gerar, nor about the matter of the wells that you made, as I am with you in all that you do. The best word to describe Yitzchak is the word that appears at the very beginning of our parsha. It says, Vayatar Yitzchak Hashem v'nochach ishto. Yitzchak was davening for Rebekah, his wife. He was told his wife was barren. And it says, Vayatar Yitzchak Hashem. What does this word Vayatar mean? Rashi uses a vernacular word. He spells it increase. Increased. Yitzchak increased and he prayed again with his prayers. He didn't give up. Yitzchak did not give up after one time. He did not give up. He increased his prayers when he was given an answer that he didn't like. He kept going and going and going. Yitzchak increased his prayers. He was desperate and he was not giving up. That is what this word Vayatar means. It means Yitzchak never gave up in his commitment. He was not taking no for an answer. He did not stop at the first rejection. He increased his demands and kept increasing his demands. This is the powerful lesson behind the words Vayatar. The word Vayatar, it means we're supposed to be tenacious in our commitment to Hashem. Even when things look bad, we should not give up. The Talmud tells us a story about a tenacious person. The Talmud tells us the story about the mother of Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, who grew to be the Av Bezdin of Bavel, the leader of the Babylonian Jewish community. And when he was a little boy, when Rav Nachman, says the Gemara in Shabbos 156b, when Rav Nachman was a little boy, an astrologer came to his mother and said, your son, he's going to be a thief. Your son is destined to be a thief. The Talmud doesn't say that this prediction was wrong. The Talmud says that the mother said, no, he's not going to be a thief. You know what I'm going to do? She put a head covering over his head and she told him to daven every day. Every day wear a head covering and daven. Don't believe just because this is the prediction about you that that's what's going to be. And so Rav Nachman didn't know that he was destined to be a thief. And so every day he wore this head covering and he davened. And then one time his head covering fell off when he was under the tree of somebody else, when he was studying Torah, and he jumped up and he started eating some dates. And then he understood that his nature was not necessarily meant to be the great Torah scholar, but he overcame the predictions about him through the strong tenacity of the mother, through his tenacity of being connected to Hashem every day, through the prayers, through the head coverings, through the ongoing recognition that he had to make Hashem at the center of his life. The astrologer was not wrong. Rav Nachman was destined to be a thief, but through tenacity and commitment we can overcome. And that's how Rav Nachman was able to be the Av Bezdin in Bavel. The lesson from the mother of Rav Nachman is the same as the lesson of Yitzchak. To achieve our spiritual goals, we must be ready to make an enormous commitment, a commitment that may take many, many, many years. We must be tenacious in our dedication, and we must make this commitment the center of our life. And still, even with all that, we should be prepared that our goals may not be met. We should be prepared that we may still fall short. We will not reach all of our goals. There is no guarantee of success, but success is not, it's almost beside the point, success. The point is that we must travel on a journey as part of our service to Hashem. And as we travel, we look for inspiration to our patriarch Yitzchak Avinu, whose determined dedication never wavered in his service to Hashem. Yitzchak Avinu never gave up. The mother of Rav Nachman, she never gave up. We can never give up. They never faltered. We can never falter. That is the message of Yitzchak Avinu. That is the message of the mother of Rav Nachman. We can never, ever give up.